we started last time. It's been 2 weeks, so I'm trying to remember. We were in chapter 13, Revelation, right? And then we went to 17. Well, I don't think we finished. And these are difficult passages, and I think I just want to briefly recap again, just to be sure everybody's on the same page. Because I've been poring over these my whole life, and so don't think you're going to get it the first or second time. It's going to take a while, okay? But it is coming very clear to us in these days. There are still a few questions, but for the most part, it seems to be unfolding, right? When you have the understanding that the book of Revelation is about the 3.5-year day of the Lord tribulation, right? It changes everything. It releases so many things to you. All right. And so we've seen in chapter 12 was about that whole period. Now we see in chapter 13, and remember we talked about the beast coming up out of the sea, right? And the beast that's coming up out of the sea is described, and it's described as having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the 10 horns are clearly told to us in Daniel. This beast is clearly told to us. There's no mystery as to what the beast is. No mystery. So clearly spelled out in Daniel. It's that 4th kingdom of Rome that reappears again at the end of the age. Right? Okay. The feet of clay and iron. The monster that from Daniel chapter 7 that goes from Rome all the way to the end of the age. Okay? Now it's coming back again, and we see this beast that is coming out of the Mediterranean. It looks like that. It's got 7 heads. Now, the new information is the 7 heads. The 10 horns we know. They're 10 kingdoms who give their authority to this empire, this last empire. Right? But, so it's an alliance, because it's iron and clay. It's an alliance of Western nations that comes out of the Mediterranean Sea. It's pretty clear. And we have an alliance today called the EU that began when Israel became a nation. Well, same year. And so we see that this is, in fact, the reemergence of that 4th beast, because Israel's back in the land. It was gone when Israel was gone, but when Israel came back, it came back. Right? And it's going to be the one that's going to take over. So you can mark this down. I don't know where you write things, but Europe is going to rise to the top here as far as Israel is concerned. The United States will not broker a peace deal. And I'm sure I'm glad about that. I don't want to be the nation that does that. Okay? That gives away God's land. We came so close to it. So many times. And we're suffering as a result. But I do not believe it'll be us. Now, we could qualify as being part of Europe, but as we stand right now, there's no way. You see how we could not just be part of Europe, because we have to be in charge of everything. Right? So America is going down to the place where if we are in this, we're in the tail end of it. We're like behind. Europe is leading. Does everybody see that? And that's happening right now. Europe is reasserting itself now. And you're going to see that change. When this war is over, that's going to change. They're going to emerge big time. Now, looking at the beast again, we saw it's made up of all those previous empires, right? It has the 4 empires in it. The beast has, it looks like a leopard, so it has Greece in it, right? It is Rome, revived Rome, so that's number 2. The 3rd one is Babylon. The head is Babylon, speaking blasphemous words. All of the blasphemy, all of the lies, all of the false religions come from Babylon, right? Then it has the feet of the bear, which is Persia. Media Persia. So it represents that whole statue, if you would. Remember this statue we just looked at? It represents this whole thing. And it appears again at the end of the age as the EU, the revived Roman Empire. Okay, that really, I know there are people who debate anything, but that's really, I think, undebatable, because the evidence is so clear in Scripture. Everybody knows the Mediterranean is the Great Sea. Right. Okay, now, the new information is the 7 heads. We didn't have that before in Daniel. So we understand that to be the 7 kingdoms that have and will persecute Israel with the people in the land. First one, I'm running really quickly now. The first one is Egypt. Second one is Assyria. The third one is Babylon. The fourth one is Media Persia, right? The fifth one is Greece. And the sixth one is Rome. And the seventh one is the EU when they make the treaty with Israel and swallow up Israel. That's the seventh one. And then there's an eighth, which is the kingdom of Antichrist, but it comes out of the 7. It's one of the 7. That's the riddle. Okay? Really not that complicated once you see it. But nothing is complicated once you see it. Before you see it, it seems very complicated, right? So we see how the EU is working towards that goal. And that might all fall together quite fast with these globalists now running the show over there. Maybe you know they've got Europe. No, they're kicking and screaming, but, you know, what are they going to do? They're going to have no money soon if they don't listen. You know, they're going to control. Now, there will be resistance, I know, and I'm glad for that. But nonetheless, when the war is over, they'll be the ones pulling it all together with the New World Order. You know, it'll be a new Bretton Woods and the whole deal somehow, right? I mean, it'll be the last arrangement before the Antichrist appears. It'll be the vehicle through which he comes, right? And it's pretty much falling into place right now. But right now, there's a lot of resistance around the world, and that's why I think it's going to be chaos for the foreseeable future. Okay. Now, so the second beast in Revelation 13 is a religious beast, right? 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. So that's what Jesus said. You know, a sheep in wolf's clothing, or a wolf in sheep's clothing. Sorry, I got it backwards. That's really what he's saying here. The second beast is actually the false prophet, who is pretending to be a lamb, but is it actually a wolf? Do we know anybody like that? Especially a person who is seated in Rome, whose headquarters are in Rome. I think we know who that is. We can call that one. Right? So now what we see clearly in the second beast, it's in verse 11 of chapter 13. We see clearly that this false prophet does a lot of the stuff. He's very active. He's the one who causes all the great and the small to take the image of the beast and so on. So this religious system that's coming into place now, headed up by the Roman Church, is by the Pope. I shouldn't probably say the Roman Church, because there are a lot of Catholics who do not want anything to do with this. But it is the current Pope is not a Christian. You know that. He's a globalist and a communist. Because he comes from South America, he's a Jesuit, and he was a communist. And he is a communist. That's why everything he says goes along with our regime. Right? He's all about climate change and all that. So he's going to sell, they're selling that, they're laying the groundwork. He's going to push that, and this is how we save the planet, and this is how we're going to, he's pushing that big time. Now, we said many times that the current guy is too old to be that one, so he's likely not going to be it, okay? But he's setting the stage for the one who follows him. It's very likely that this New World religion will actually be the next step. When the next person comes on the scene, he will not only be the Pope, but he will also be the leader of the world religion. Okay? So anyway, all that. We said all that. You remember all that? We're all on the same page? All right. So then we have to go to chapter 17. And we have to skip right now. We're coming back to 14. We won't skip it. But you see in chapter 13 why we have both beasts are mentioned. So it's about the same period of time, the day of the Lord, the 3.5-year tribulation. Right? That's when the Antichrist manifests. That's what begins the tribulation. And the false prophet works together with him. Okay, chapter 17. We saw how John, now it's really important. This is a point I was making last time. And I want to make it again now. I'm sorry if seems like I'm beating a dead horse here, but by repeating myself over and over. But I just want to make sure you understand this. Go back to chapter 13 again, verse 1. Okay, I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads. Okay? That's what he saw. He didn't see a man coming out of the sea. And this is where the same is true in 17. In 17, let's go there. 17, chapter 1. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and said to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot, who is seated on many waters, and with whom the kings of the earth have committed sexual immorality, and with the wine of whose sexual immorality the dwellers on earth have become drunk." I don't know why I'm on the English Standard Version. I wanted to be on the NAS. It's still good, but anyway, I'll just keep going with this. And he carried me the way in the spirit into a wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast. Scarlet, notice that, the colors, was full of blasphemous names. Now, blasphemy as we know it is really saying something the opposite of what's true. It's not just a religious thing that they're saying. It's the opposite of what's true. Like God created the planet. The opposite of that. The blasphemy is that it evolved. That it was Big Bang that made it. See? That's blasphemy. And to say that God has control over the climate and over the earth, and to say that it is out of control and man has control over it is blasphemy. We need to understand our terms here, because we tend to think of blasphemy the way we were raised. Many of us think that when somebody's cursing, saying a bad word, that's blasphemy. Well, it may be, but depending on what they're saying, of course. But we're talking here about the exact opposite of what's true. That's blasphemy. And saying it like it's true. Turning lies into truth and truth into lies. That's the blasphemy we're going to see. And are we seeing that? So that's blasphemy. Our government blasphemes all the time. Everybody in the government seems to blaspheme these days. Like they say the exact opposite of what's true. And expect you to just they keep saying it and brainwash you. Right? Okay. But I want to point out that in both places where the beast is spoken about, it is this beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. It's not a human being. Now, we know that a human being will lead it. But I need to point out that's the secondary thing we're understanding that, and we're adding that on. But it doesn't actually say that the beast is a person that comes out of the Mediterranean. It's not. It's an empire. Or an alliance. Right? That's important. Why is that important? Because everybody's talking about the beast as a person only. right? The beast, the Antichrist is the beast, and that's all everybody talks about now. But actually, in both of those passages, the beast is seen as a king, an alliance of kingdoms. You get the point? So now from that, it's an inference that we pull out that there's a man leading it and that the same thing happens to him, that he dies and so on. But that is an inference. It's not stated. I tend to agree with that. It's kind of a dual prophecy thing. But what we are told is that the kingdom comes, the alliance comes. We are not told that the person is the beast. Although some of the inferences clearly, it has to have a person leading it who will be the Antichrist. So we're putting scriptures together there. But what I'm finding is a lot of Bible prophecy teachers are ignoring the fact that the beast is a system. Right? And that's a big mistake. What if the image of the beast is actually the thing with 7 heads and 10 horns? Well, why not? Nebuchadnezzar made an image out of the statue and made everybody worship it. Why couldn't it be? Why couldn't this be some kind of manifestation of the beast that they set up, like an AI thing or something? They set this thing up and breathe life into it. And it starts telling the world what to do. Right? It's possible. Now, I'm not saying it is that, but if we take it literally, which we should, that's what it seems to be saying, the image of the beast. Now, let's look at that, just to be sure that I'm not, so you can see it for yourself. Okay. When I saw her, the woman, verse 4. The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and jewels and pearls. Sound familiar? Holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the impurities of her sexual immorality. Can I just show you a few pictures here, just so you understand? How about that? Do we have the right colors? Purple and scarlet. What is that? That's a picture, that's a sundial. That's what that is. And you see the Baal Hadad in it, you see the moon, and you see the sun. The wafer is the sun. Okay, the sun is in the moon. That's Baal Hadad, they call it. It's the fertility thing. Okay, the sun is being worshipped here. Does that look like a picture of Jesus? Does it? Not this, the one I just showed you. And it says IHS. Now they will tell you it means in his service, but it actually means Isis, Horus, Seth. Okay? That's why there's an Egyptian obelisk right outside the Vatican. Why is there an Egyptian sun god obelisk right outside the Vatican? And the whole thing being a sundial. Is that about Jesus? No. Okay. So, and I think we can all say right now that the God the Pope is talking about is not the Christian God. Even Catholics are saying that. Some very good Catholics, at least, if you know what I mean, strong Catholics who believe the Bible, even though they don't know it in most cases. But they don't believe that the Pope has the same God as them. Okay? So, anyway, you get my drift here, do you? You can see, if we just look at the pictures, I mean, the worship of the Queen of Heaven is everywhere now. There's, you see, the Queen of Heaven is in the moon, right? And that's a Buddha thing. Let's go I'm sorry, I'm pulling the wrong thing here. Let's go on a bit. I'll show you some more signs. That actually was outside the Colosseum, and that's Moloch, right? And that's just recently the Vatican placed it outside the Colosseum. The Colosseum actually is considered a church because the Catholic Church has services there. Sorry? What's that? Nobody questions that? No. Well, those of us who know what it is question it, but They've had whole services to this Latin American Queen of Heaven. I forget what they call her. Yeah. Just look at the symbols, okay? The same symbol in Islam, the Baal Hadad. It's also, of course, the United Nations, right? And everywhere you look, it's the same thing, worshiping the Queen of Heaven, right? The Queen of Heaven is in Scripture. It's a pagan idol. It's it's not a demon. It's a spirit. It's a fallen angel of some sort. All right. So having said all that, I just wanted to show you the colors. See. Now, we'll come back to that. But let me go back where I was so I don't lose my place here. That's not it. Come on. How come it never does what you want when you want it to do it? Anybody else know what I'm talking about? Okay, let's go back where we were. Right. Now, the woman, right, is sitting on the beast. The beast, the woman is sitting on the beast, and on her forehead is written a name, a mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of earth's abominations. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. All right? Now, Babylon in this case is Rome. Well, do you want proof of that? Anybody want proof? Okay. Got proof. I've got proof. Go to verse 18 of the same chapter. What does it say? Who the woman is. Doesn't say America. It says the woman whom you saw is the great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. Only one city fits that bill at the time of the writing. It's Rome. Okay? So it clearly spells out who the woman is, and it gives us all the details, and yet people are going around teaching that America is Babylon, Mystery Babylon. How many things have you heard about Mystery Babylon? It's time to be getting this one. It really is. It's right in front of us. We're seeing it emerging. It's been there all along. We've had the false prophet with us a long time. But the fulfillment of it is not right there yet, because all of the pieces aren't in place. All right. So she's the mother of the harlots. Now, what about the blood of the saints? Well, as I showed you a moment ago, who murdered all the Christians in the Colosseum? Who murdered all the Jews? Rome. No disagreement there? No, because it's true, right? Who else murdered Christians? The Catholic Church did for many, many years. The people who sought the Lord were persecuted and burned at the stake. You know that, right? You do know that. You ever read Fox's Book of Martyrs? I suggest you read that if you don't know that, because the church has murdered so many people. So many good people were murdered because they went against the Pope, or they went against the teachings of the church. I can think of one, Joan of Arc. I can think of probably loads of others. John Huss. Was Tyndale? I think Tyndale was. Was he? Was he burned? John Huss certainly was. Bunch of others. So my point is that both systems are guilty of the blood of the saints. Rome murdered Jesus. Hello? Now we all did, of course, spiritually, but they were the ones, the empire, that actually murdered the Lord and all of his followers that they could get their hands on. And so look at the two places. The Colosseum, where all those Christians were killed, represents ancient Rome, and it's still standing. It's never received the judgment. Right? Rome's going to get the judgment. It's coming. But the Vatican now is essentially the same place. It's just a few blocks away. Not that far away at all. And it's built, by the way, on the ruins of a temple to Cybele, another manifestation of the Queen of Heaven. Anyway, and again, this is not an attack on Catholics, okay? Because I have friends that are Catholics. There are some Catholics who know the Lord. Why they're still Catholics, I don't know. That's between them and God. But they're told to come out of her. We'll see that in chapter 18. And there are Christians, and now we know. I used to think for years we all thought it's going to be the Catholics and the mainline churches. But now we know that all the other churches, all the evangelicals and charismatic churches are going to have participate as well. There'll be a remnant, of course, that won't. But we see it happening right now. Lining up for the peace. They want peace. It's going to be all about peace and saving the planet. And anyone that's not on that agenda is the enemy that's causing all the problems for the planet. Right? It's not hard to see that anymore. So, let's get back to the text now. And I'll try to put this together for you with what I was talking about, the beast, okay? So she rides on the beast, right? And so it's a political system that we've already defined. It's already been defined for us. It has 10 horns and 7 heads, right? And the woman is the city of Rome, but it's a religious system because it's called a harlot. And a harlotry, as we saw tonight when we were reading in Judges, is how spiritual harlotry, spiritual adultery is idolatry. Idolatry is spiritual adultery, right? And so the harlot is an adulteress. She's supposed to be loving God, but she doesn't. You understand? So she commits harlotry with the kings of the earth. And is that not what the Vatican does? Isn't that what this whole system that's coming together, this world religious system, is going to sit right on top of the beast, of the political system? Okay? Now, the beast which you saw, verse 8. See that? The beast that you saw. What beast did he see? Well, I'll go back and read it. The beast, a scarlet beast, full of blasphemous names, having 7 heads and 10 horns. That's the beast that he saw. Agreed? And it says, the beast that you saw is not, and is about to come out of the abyss and go to destruction. Right? So the beast is that empire. And it was before, appears to say that it was, and then it isn't. Actually, in the Greek, it's more like it is, and it isn't, and then it's coming again. That's how the Greek, I'm looking at this very carefully, and that's how it comes out. Now, it's translated differently, but it could also be translated, it is and it isn't, and then it is again. Right? Which means it's emerged, and then it's not there, and then it's there again, but only in a different form. Does it make sense? It's not coming in the way that Jesus comes. You follow? Jesus is coming from the heavens. It's coming up out of the earth. It's emerging. Now, from that, we do believe that there is a human person there's something that comes out of the abyss and takes over this human person and leads this empire. You follow? So we don't discount that. And that's the Antichrist. But The beast that he's talking about is the system, the political system, the empire. So, the beast that's coming is the EU making a covenant with Israel. And led by a person, obviously. Right? The person who makes that treaty will then turn out to be in the middle of the 17th week, 3.5 years later, he will become the Antichrist. The Antichrist will be revealed as a man of lawlessness. Are we all on the same page? Right. So don't discount the beast system, because that's the one that's actually mentioned over and over again. A lot of people are doing that. We've all been guilty of that. Because we tend to just look at the person. Who's the person? Who is the Antichrist? We tend to look at that. But we see the system developing. It really doesn't matter who the Antichrist is. We'll know when he does what the Bible says he's going to do. We'll know who it is. Right? But we see the beast emerging, and that's the point that we should be looking at. All right. Now, the little riddle, I don't know if we got through it last time, but I have to finish this tonight and get 18 done as well. Okay? Then we can go back to 14, where it talks about, we can see the bride of Christ, 14 and 15, and then we'll proceed to 19 and so on. And we should be finished in 2 more weeks, maybe. 2 or 3. We'll be done soon. All right? You're hopeful. Now, and those who live on the earth, whose names have not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, would wonder when they see the beast that he was, and isn't now, and will come again. Right? Will be manifested again. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains upon which the woman sits. Rome is the woman. It's built on 7 hills. That's a well-known fact. You can go and walk on them. Okay, I've been there. I've seen them. 7 hills. And, but it's also 7 kingdoms. Don't miss that part. So the prophetic 7 heads represents 2 things. The 7 hills that Rome's built on, and the 7 kingdoms that have swallowed up Israel, persecuted Israel down through the ages. Right? And we see what they are. Well, that's not it. It's right here, this chart. Okay? Remember I went through that just a second ago. Egypt, right? Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, Rome, and the EU, and then the final one, the 8th, which is when the Antichrist takes over and establishes his kingdom, which lasts a very short time. So both the last 2 only last 3.5 years each, and the Antichrist kingdom doesn't even last that long. Just falls, the whole world falls apart. Right? But it's absolute terror in the day of the Lord. Now, this is all in this little passage now that we're going to read. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, a bunch of woman sits, and there are 7 kings. There are 7 kingdoms. Get it in your head that they're kingdoms. If you try to make them kings, remember the beast is a kingdom, right? If you try to make them kings, then you get lost. Many scholars over the years, and I remember when I was starting out, I was reading different ones. I remember reading Watchman Nee many moons ago, who was kind of developing Nero as the one, and so on, that he would come back again and all that kind of stuff. The fact is, if you look at Roman emperors, there's just so many of them, you'd have to pick out 7, and it's totally arbitrary. There's no reason to pick out any particular 7. You follow? The same is true with all the kingdoms that have come since Assyria and Babylon. There's been all kinds of kingdoms, but only 7 that swallowed up the nation of Israel. Actually 6, and the last one being the EU that will do it again. That's the difference. Are you there? You can look in history. No other kingdom did it. They might have taken the Holy Land, but the people weren't there. It wasn't Israel. Israel was not there. But only 6 did it. Now, he says, and the one that's coming. He says, now, there are 7 kings. 5 have fallen. 7 kingdoms, right? 5 have fallen. In other words, there are no more. 1 is, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must remain a little while. I know this seems difficult, but hang in there. Just keep listening to it. You'll get it. Okay, 5 have fallen. Who's the 5 that have fallen? Of the empires that persecuted Israel and swallowed up Israel: Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece. 5 have fallen. Right? 1 is, that's Rome at the time of the writing. 1 is. And then the other has not yet come. But when it comes, it'll only last a little while. Now that is such a true statement, because what he's saying is it's going to be such a little while. 3.5 years to be exact. That's a very little time for such a kingdom to last. Right? That's why he spells it out. Compared to all the others, it's like nothing. But then he says, the beast which was and is not is himself also an 8th, and is one of the 7. And he goes to destruction. What does that mean? Well, the 8th one is the Antichrist. You follow? Because in the middle of the 70th week, he breaks the covenant. This person who made the covenant breaks it. Because we see that in Daniel 9:27. He will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 7-year period. In the middle of the 7-year period, he will break the covenant. So it's the same guy. But then comes the abomination of desolation. So this person who makes the covenant then will rise to a position where he breaks it. And he will then become the Antichrist. He will be revealed as the man of lawlessness. He totally changes character and becomes somebody different. Okay? Now we looked at that. Now there is a possibility that he dies, comes back to life, another person comes into him out of the abyss. That we see here by inference. But it isn't clearly stated. We're just assuming that that's what happens, based on some other passages that seem to indicate something happens with him, that he changes totally. Right? And it makes perfect sense that if that happened to the kingdom, then it will happen to him as well. But it's the kingdom of Rome, Roman Empire, that is not for a long while, and then comes again. It's one of the heads, remember? You remember. Okay, let's go back to... No, let's finish this. Back in chapter 13, it says, one of his heads looks like it has been slain, but his mortal wound is healed. One of its heads, that means one of the empires. Because remember, the 7 heads are 7 empires. There's no way you can ever make them seven kings. Believe me, I've looked at it from every angle. There's books out now saying that there are angels, fallen angels, 7 angels, and there are manifestations of them throughout history, and all these kinds of theories that people are coming up with. But the simplest one is right there in the text. There are 7 kingdoms. If you try to make them kings, it's completely subjective. Because there have been so many kingdoms and kings and Caesars and all different kinds of kings that have been involved in these empires, that how do you pick? How do you choose? You know, and it's totally up to the person to pick and choose, and you can't do that. The Bible's not like that. You can't just pick and choose. You can't make up stuff. Okay? This is an event that happens where this kingdom comes back to life. And it looks like the Roman Empire all back again. And that's the great mystery. How did it come back again? And how did Israel become part of it? Right? People will marvel at that. Now, like I said, the person may die and be brought back to life by another entity entering into him. That's likely to happen. But all I'm saying is, let's not forget the first meaning of it, which is the literal one. Are you with me? Why do we discount the actual literal meaning of it as being a kingdom? Okay, I'm guilty of that too, because we all tend to go and focus on the Antichrist, because that's what everybody wants to hear about. So, but the eighth is one of the seven. Right? You getting it? The eighth is actually one of the seven. Now, the seventh kingdom, the one with the mortal wound, could actually be the last one. Just as easily as it's the others. You follow? It could be any of these. But all six of them, all kind of, Rome fell apart. All six of them disappeared from history, although there are remnants of them left, which is what the 13 is telling us, right? But they're gone. So they died. But it seems to be focusing in on one of the heads as having been mortally wounded. That may be the absolute end of the last one so abruptly. We don't know. I'm just giving it to you as a possibility, because then the eighth one comes on the scene. But it's the same person, but it's not the same person. It's the same human body, but it's a different entity in it. So it's the last one, it's the eighth, but it's one of the seven. So one thing we can clearly get from that is that personage has to have been one of those seven. If this is a person that lived once before and comes out of Hades or comes out of the abyss and goes into this person, it has to be somebody, one of from one of those kingdoms. You follow? A leader from one of those kingdoms. That's why I think it's probably more likely the last one. But who knows? Much speculation going on now that it's Nimrod and all that. Have you heard any of that? Oh, you're so sheltered. That's good. But if you look at any, I mean, if you go on YouTube and you have any the kind of searches that I do, you'll see all these people with the books and the videos about, all this stuff. Anyway, you don't do that, obviously. But you don't have to. You'll see books all the time about, are we in the tribulation? Right? Is this the beast? Is this Babylon? You'll see that all the time, because people, for some reason, they just can't seem to settle on what the Bible actually says. They just want to mystify the whole thing and make it, so that we can't really get it. Only they get it. That's the difference in what I'm teaching you. I'm teaching you what you can see yourself. If you can't see it, then I don't have it right. I have to be able to get it to you so you see it. And you see it in the Bible, not what I say, but that you see it yourself. Amen? So looking at this from the chart again, we know that the beginning of we call this the 70th week, the 7-year period. I know they all call it the tribulation, but it's not. Only half of it is the tribulation. Okay? When the Antichrist is revealed at the abomination of desolation, then we're in the tribulation. That's what Jesus said. That's what Paul said. Right? You got that one, don't you? Okay, so the first 3.5 years is going to be about peace and security and love and caring for the planet and, Mother Earth and all that. Right? That was it. It was Mother Earth. There's some kind of worship of Mother Earth at the Vatican a few years ago. Earth Day, or Earth. Yeah, they're going to make it a religious holiday, by the way. This is the beginning of it. Earth Day is the religious holiday. They're going to bring all these things. They're going to have churches that are representing this new world religion. Yeah, they're going to be building them all over the place. Okay, with demonic ministers. We have so-called ministers like that now. I think it's who was it? I think it's Tony Campola. You know him? His son, I think, renounced Christianity and became the first minister of humanism or something. I don't know. So we have very bizarre entities out there now. Really bizarre. Okay. How are we doing? 15 minutes left. Okay. Let's go finish up 17 then. Where was I? Verse 9? Was I verse 9? Yeah. Here's the mind which has wisdom. Yeah, no, I went through that. Verse 11. The beast which was and is not is himself also an eighth and is one of the seven, and he goes to destruction. You see that now? In other words, one of those empires like Rome that existed before, but now it's back, but it goes to destruction. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received the kingdom, but they receive authority as kings with the beast for 1 hour. These have one purpose, and they give their power and authority to the beast. Now, it doesn't mean 1 literal hour, like 60 minutes. Hour is used throughout the Bible as it's the hour of testing. It's the hour, that kind of usage of the word hour is very, very common. It doesn't mean it's a short period of time, but it's a specific period of time. That's what's being said. They give their authority to this person, these 10 nations do, for a specific purpose and time. And the purpose, I believe, is to bring, peace in the Middle East, to bring Israel and its enemies together. There won't be enemies then, because the war will have already come and gone. And it'll have to be straightened out, and they'll have to get the Temple Mount straightened out, and let the Jews carry on with their faith and doing their thing, and the Muslims will do their thing, and it'll all happen in peace and security on the Temple Mount. And the guy that works that out is going to be usher in a time of peace and security. 1 Thessalonians 5:3, right? But in the middle, he breaks it. Now, notice what else happens in the middle. Remember, I pointed this out clearly to you in Revelation 12. What happens? Satan is cast out. So that coincides directly with the change in this person who dies possibly, or is changed. He's just like Judas was entered, Satan entered Judas. It's the same kind of thing. All right? All right. We'll move on from this tonight, promise. But I want to be clear with you. Don't want you not getting this, because this is really becoming more important all the time. All right. Now, some people have a problem with the fact that they think the 10 kings don't have a kingdom, so there must have been 10 kings he was talking about that lived at that time but never got a kingdom. That's one interpretation, which I think is bizarre. There's a whole book around that. These are the 10 angels, one guy is saying, 10 fallen angels who never got a kingdom, but they're getting... No. These are 10 kings that people who appear on the scene and will be rulers of a nation, one of the nations of Europe, most likely. 10 of them. It's happened several times already, where 10 of them join together to do something. That's what it's going to be. They will represent Europe, but it'll be 10 of them. Like right now there's 10 of them joined together for an army. They will join together for a purpose. They're not going to be just 10 taking over all the others. They're going to be 10 that give their authority to this person for a specific purpose and time. And he, because of the system they have set up, will take it all over, because he will have satanic power. Okay? So don't negate the fact that there's satanic power at work during the tribulation period. It's at work now, but Satan is going to be on the scene. Okay? And the fallen angels are down with him. A third of the angels. So this is, yeah, they're thrown down to the earth. Revelation chapter 12. Okay? So you're going to have natural things and supernatural things all working together, both good and bad. Okay? It's the final showdown of the forces of darkness and the forces of light. It's the final showdown. And humans are caught up in it all and have to take sides. Which side are you going to be on? And all those humanists are going to be seeing things they never thought they'd see. You see how God's going to deal with the pride of man. He's going to deal with the pride of man. That's what Isaiah tells us. All right. Let's go on now. You all done with that? Yeah. You see, well, I'll finish it. Then he said to me, well, these, verse 14, will wage war against the Lamb. The Lamb will overcome them. They are actually going to go after Jesus. And the Lamb will overcome them because he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And those who are left with him are the called and the chosen and the faithful. Amen? Those who are with him. Did I say left? That's sorry. That was me. I'm sorry about that. I don't know where that came from. Those who are with him when he comes. And that's going to be you and me too. Right? We will come with him when he comes because we'll already have gone to be with him. What's that? I think so. We certainly get to judge, so he comes to fight, and we'll be with him. So I'm not sure. I really don't know the answer to that. It's a good question. But he's going to blow them away anyway. The armies which are in heaven come with him, and we'll be part of that. And he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. And that's the difference between the Roman Empire coming out of, the revived Roman Empire coming out of Mediterranean and the Roman religious system, which is coming out of all the earth. Centered in Rome, but it's in the earth, right? All the nations will be given to this false worship. Right? 10 horns which you saw, and the beast, these will hate the harlot and will make her desolate and naked and will eat her flesh and burn her up with fire. So towards the end of the tribulation, the beast and the false prophet are going to turn on Rome and they're going to burn it. It's going to be, it sounds like a nuclear bomb. It's going to take Rome out. Okay? And for God has put it in their hearts to execute his purpose by having a common purpose and by giving their kingdom to the beast until the words of God will be fulfilled. The woman whom you saw is the great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. We've seen this already. Now go to chapter 18. After these things, now he gets another vision, right? That's what after these things mean. Doesn't mean it's chronologically after. Means, okay, that's all done. He's seen all that. Now he's seeing another one. And what he's seeing now is the specific judgment that's poured out on Rome. The judgment of Babylon. Babylon is Rome. And Peter even says that. He calls Rome Babylon. And it was kind of a code name for Rome. Okay? Because Rome was a representation of that whole kingdom. From Nebuchadnezzar on. Right? After these things I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated from his glory. And he cried out with a mighty voice, saying, Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling place of demons, and a prison of every unclean spirit, and a prison of every unclean and hateful bird. For all the nations have fallen because of the wine of the passion of her sexual immorality. It's actually spiritual immorality. But there's a lot of sexual immorality too. I think we're seeing that now. I mean, it is beyond our comprehension how bad it is. The pedophile ring goes right through the Catholic Church as well as all the governments. And it's bad. How else do you think they're trying to legalize pedophilia? I make it a good thing. Talk about blasphemy. How can anything be more blasphemous than that? Well, there can be, but it's pretty bad, wouldn't you say? And the wine of her passion of her sexual immorality, and the kings of the earth have committed acts of sexual immorality with her, and the merchants, that they're all in bed together, is what he's saying. Okay? I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not participate in her sins and receive of her plagues." So now that doesn't just apply to Catholics and the mainline churches. It applies to the charismatics and the Pentecostals and all of them who were caught up in the system. Get out, because judgment is coming on it. All right? You saw how they all went to Rome and kissed the Pope and everything, got the red carpet. You saw that a few years ago. I showed it to you. Even our own group that we were involved in went. That was the end of the line for us. Oh gosh, I have 4 minutes. Anyway, pay her back, even as she has paid, and give her back double according to her deeds. In the cup which she mix twice as much for her. See, when God's judgments come, they're going to be very severe on some people. To the extent that she glorified herself and lived luxuriously, and she's gotten away with it all these years, 2,000 years, since Rome and until now, right? For this reason, one day her plagues will come, plague and mourning and famine, and she will be burned up with fire, for the Lord who judges her is strong. And the kings of the earth who committed acts of sexual immorality and lived luxuriously with her will weep and mourn over her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance. Watch this here. Standing at a distance because of the fear of her torment. That sounds just like nuclear blast, doesn't it? Woe, woe, the great city, Babylon, the strong city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. And the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her, because no one buys their cargo anymore, cargo of gold, silver, precious stones, and pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, and scarlet, every kind of citron wood. Man, these are such telltale things. And every article of ivory, every article made from very valuable wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cinnamon, spice, incense, perfume, frankincense, wine, olive oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, and cargoes of horses, carriages, slaves, and human lives. And I used to read that and think, Lord, we don't do that anymore. Years ago, I used to think that. And now, guess what? We have human slaves and sex slaves and everything being sold like on a regular basis everywhere. So it's all back again. Okay, and they, verse 19. And they threw dust on their heads and were crying out, weeping and mourning, saying, Woe, woe, the great city in which all who had ships at sea, notice they're out at sea, became rich from her prosperity, for in 1 hour she had been laid waste. Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you saints and apostles and prophets, because God has pronounced judgment for you against her. Anyway, I'm out of time, but Rome is responsible for all this, right? But notice that they're out at sea crying over her all the stuff. If you think for a minute of the wealth of the world that's in Rome, think for a minute of what's in the Vatican Museum. So we went through it. Look at the Sistine Chapel. Look at all of the artwork, all of the incredible. What do you think that's worth? It's all going to go up in smoke. And that's what they're crying over. The incredible wealth. Right? They're out at sea because it's a nuclear blast. That's why they're not in the city. They're out away from it because it's scary. They don't want to get close. Amen. Okay. That's the best I can do on that. So Lord bless you. Thank you for being patient. Have a good night.